made it. We survived another week to make it back live.
I know. I'm not going to say it till the end of the session. However, yeah, we're both here.
Yes.
And we're both in the location where we started 4 weeks ago.
Yes, and we're both healthy and everything.
Our bodies are not at the moment falling apart.
Yes, awesome. So I think last week, maybe we'll just mention we have that blog post up now.
Yeah, so last week we talked about separating the sleeves and bust shaping, which involves a lot of math, a lot of scary math. So I did as best as I could an explanation last week, and then we put together my words in a much more coherent fashion and put them in our Felix Knit Along blog post.
Yeah.
And those just went up. So if you'd like to follow along the instructions, you are more than welcome to. But as I mentioned last week, if this is your first sweater, or if you don't have a large bust, or if you just don't want to do it, you're feeling lazy, then you don't have to do it. It's just optional.
I definitely, I have a large bust, and I haven't done the full bust adjustment, and I've been comfortable. I just I don't know, it just works for me. I guess I just pick the right size, and it just kind of hangs nicely. But yeah, if you want it to be more fitted,
exactly. So while we prep for today's session, if anybody has any questions from last week or that you've encountered in the process of knitting your Felix, and please feel free to put them in the comments right now. And today we're going to talk about two main things. We'll talk about waist shaping, so bringing in and increasing along the waist. Again, totally optional. It is also math heavy. Yay! But some people like to put a little waist shaping in for structure and for the look. And then Caitlin is going to talk about
the hem. And I think we're also going to talk about sleeves.
Are we tonight? We might be. Caitlin might be talking about sleeves tonight.
Well, we did mention when in our notes. I'm just looking at my notes.
Yes.
Sleeves decreases, but we may also do a week 5.
Yes.
Yeah. Depending on how today goes, we may bump some of it into week 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Caitlin is feeling improvisational. Emily has not prepared for sleeves at all. I know how to need a sleeve.
I have not prepared for the sleeves, but we could discuss.
Yes.
We could,
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'm just going to turn the fan on.
Yes. And would you like to grab your special sweater with the lovely hem to show people what it looks like?
Yeah. That's what I was going to grab on the way back.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk. Oh, there it is. Let's start by talking about waist shaping. So this is a second optional shaping. Oh man, Caitlin. We're screwed today. This is a little brain dead from the week. Yeah. So waist shaping can be used to tuck in along your waist and then expand again for the lower half of your torso. And when I knit my Felix sweater, I actually had a negative ease fit around the bust, and instead of decreasing and then increasing again, I just added some extra stitches to make the bottom half of the torso, bottom half of the sweater fit my body better. And it's still, I would say it's maybe a 0 ease, there might be a slight positive ease, but it made it so that I could have the sweater and be comfortable wearing it wherever, and it wasn't too tight on me or anything.
It doesn't
like that.
ride up or
Exactly. So I have the second half of my art project from last week. Ta-da!
Very cute.
And so what do you think? Should we tilt or should I hold up classroom style?
I think you can hold up.
All right.
Because we don't want to get improvisational with the camera set up here.
No, because it's behaving and there is 0 yarn attached to the camera right now.
It's staying staying straight there. It's not like falling down like last time.
Yeah, Caitlin, you win the prize that no one else in the shop has been able to figure out how to get this to not fall.
Yeah, well, we did it.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to scooch forward a little bit. Okay, so
Katie says hi.
Hi, Katie.
Yay.
So if you recall, we talked about the neck short row shaping. We talked about the bust shaping, bringing that front down a little bit. And I would like to talk about sort of what the effect of waist shaping will do with a little visualization. So on this side, I'm going to do a full waist shaping. And so what happens is you bring the sweater in slightly. Oh, geez. Okay, I really can't see. Bring it in slightly. That's way more than slightly. Let's soften that angle just a little bit.
Well, some people might have that shape.
And then you're going to bring it back out again, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so actually on the topic of some people might have that shape, it's completely true. But generally the wisdom, not my wisdom, but the generally agreed wisdom, is not to go fully in a la negative ease, because you'll find the second half of your sweater, the bottom half of the sweater will kind of hang a little bit weird.
Okay.
So instead you want to come in like maybe 2 inches at most.
Okay.
Just to give like an inkling of a shaping without it being too dramatic.
Yeah.
And that should be enough to convey that shape. Or if you don't want to go in and then out again, especially if you're knitting a size that is quite fitted around the bust, like I usually do, you could do just waist increases. So I knit straight, she says, questioning as she looks in the camera, and then started to do some increasing.
Okay. So kind of making more of almost like an A line, but not exactly A, but just sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do either one. This will involve more math. When I did this version, I literally just would do an increase row, knit some plain rows, try it on and be like, no, it's not big enough.
Yeah.
And do another one and repeat until it was the right size circumference wise. So this is essentially the 2 options you have to choose from if you'd like to add some shaping around the waist. The next thing I want to address is, where do you put your shaping? Where do you do your decreases and your increases? Because when I was researching this, when I knit my first Felix, I had only ever seen in sweaters that you do your decreases or your increases along the side, like in a faux seam, as it were. But I found these really great instructions that I found worked out really great for my body shape. And the side seam version will work for some body shapes, but this one was, okay, here we go. Doing your decreases and increases sort of along the 25 and 75% line in the front, and then also in the back.
Okay, so kind of like
a true A line.
Yeah, or like sometimes you see those shirts that have some darts, or like the darts kind of go all the way down the front seat.
Exactly.
The front 2 and the back 2.
Yes,
to kind of. So if you're a sewer, you might have seen that.
Yes, and what it does is it functionally spreads out these increases and decreases so that they don't all line up in one point. It spreads them out a little bit for a bit more of a smoother shape.
Okay.
So that's the kind that I experimented with. You can do just along the sides. It is important to note, though, that if you're going to be doing your decreases and increases along the side, you're going to do 1 before the side seam, as the fake seam, 1 after the fake seam, and then the same on the other side, 1 and 1. So you'll have 4 increases or 4 decreases per row. But if you do the fancy A-line darty type kind, you're going to have 1 on either side of that. So you're actually going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the back 5, 6, 7, 8.
Right.
So you're going to have to accommodate with how many plain rows you put so that it doesn't decrease too quickly compared to the others.
And could you use your gauge swatch to kind of
Yes, you
Is that where you're going with this?
Oh, Caitlin, it's such a great question.
This is not scripted.
No, you knew exactly where I was going, though.
Yeah,
That's a good question. Yeah, because when it comes to doing the shaping for your body type and for your knitting, specifically in this project, how your needles and your yarn are turning out coming from your fingers. Using your gauge swatch or your sweater as it's been knit so far is going to help you calculate exactly where you want to do your shaping, when you want to start, sort of when's the middle sort of waist section, and then how you're going to proceed towards the bottom of the sweater. So you'll have to take a few measurements, and in case anyone's wondering, we are going to put this in another blog post because math is complicated.
Yeah. Coming
from my mouth.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah.
So for my brain to understand it, you would...
Yes.
I don't know if you heard that honk. You would measure with your swatch. You would have, however many stitches per inch.
Yeah.
And you will get you'll have your measurement kind of at this point.
Exactly.
And then you can measure yourself at this point. Okay. And you want to basically use that gauge to measure how many increases you're going to need to go.
Yes. Or
to get to the width at the
exactly.
bottom. I don't know. I did not explain that very clearly, but you know what I mean.
I'm going to rehash it. Yeah.
Yes, rehash it.
So we're going to ignore this version that I did. Using the full waist shaping, you would want to measure the distance from your armpit, or rather I should say from not from your armpit, from where you are after your optional bust shaping, / if you decide not to do bust shaping, sort of wherever you are in this middle zone. Essentially, if you've knit a couple rows after you split for your sleeves and you want to do waist shaping, jump into that math right away. So you're going to measure from this part here to the waist. The waist is sort of where you bend. If you've never measured for garment sewing, bend over and that point is your waist. So measure the distance between those two. And now we have, say, 5 inches or something like that. And then you're going to use your swatch and you say, okay, 16 rows is 4 inches. Okay, let's use 4 inches. There's 4 inches between your armpit. Let's make it easy. 4 inches between your armpit and your waist. And you're going to say, okay, so it's 4 inches and there's 16 rows. So I know I have 16 rows to work with between this point and this point. Then you're going to figure out, okay, I would like to decrease 1 inch, which is maybe 8 stitches. Okay. And so, and this math is way off. Don't try to knit to this gauge.
It's just an example of,
Yeah, for the numbers. So if you say, okay, I need to get rid of 8 stitches over 4 inches, and I'm going to do 4 stitches decreased per row, I need to put 2 of those decreased rows to get rid of those 8 in between the armpit and the waist.
Right.
And if it's 4 inches, you'd say maybe you do 2 inches and you do a decrease row, and then you do another 2 inches and you do another decrease row.
Yeah. Now, just to
make it more complicated, you got a question?
To jump in here.
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions. Okay, so Katie wants to know, how often do you try on your sweater when knitting? And then 2 people have some sort of more specific questions, which maybe you'll get to first. Okay.
We answer that first. Katie's first question.
Yeah.
It depends. If you're going to do the shaping business, a lot more frequently.
Yeah.
Basically, checking to make sure you're on the right track, and then, so for instance, I tried on my sweater 4 times when I was doing my increases, because I did a total of 4 increase rows. If you are not doing any of this funny business, if you're just splitting for the sleeves, knitting your body. Unless you want a different length than what's called for, unless you want to go longer, or more importantly, if you want to go cropped, knit the however many inches they call for you to knit in the body, try it on, see if it's where you want it to be.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind you're going to have another couple of inches of your hem to work with to stretch that down. So, yeah.
And a lot of people will, when they sew a pattern, some people will find they can often just knit a pattern or sew a pattern and it's fine right off the bat.
Yes.
Sometimes that does happen. So, you can always try that.
Yeah.
You could certainly try that for your first time, and then kind of for your next sweater, do more of the tweaking. Yeah. Once you kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work for you, because
Yes.
every sweater is going to be a little different.
Exactly. But yeah, I will usually try mine on, even with no funny business, at least once before I start my ribbing, before I start my hemline, because then I can tell if I've knit. Because I'm a bit of a lazy knitter, so I'm like, oh, can I be done? No, I can't be done. I need like 2 more inches. And then I sort of can calculate that and how many rows I've got left and keep track of that. Yeah.
Okay, so Retreat Junkie says, do you have...
I remember you from last time.
Yeah, I don't know who they are in person.
I know, but they're very technical. I like it.
Do you have to increase lower than the waist if hips are smaller than bust/shoulders?
Oh. Okay, so hold on a second. Language. Do you have to increase less if the hips are... Yeah. Yes, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah? Do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Will that help?
Increase lower than the waist if the hips are small. Retreat Junkie, do you mean that like you have to increase fewer stitches, or do you mean move that
lower on the body?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that could that might be a translation
yeah
thing.
So I think okay, hold on a second. If you are thinking about in terms of circumference, I think yes, you would increase to match the fit, lower than the waist, because your hips are smaller. That's a really good question. My gut instinct would be to still do the waist shaping at the waist, but maybe as you'd pull a reverse Emily, if you don't need the as much of an increase because your hips are smaller than your waist, then don't do as many increases. Yeah. I don't think it would change the placement. You're still trying to aim for your natural waist. Yeah. Or just do, something like that, Retreat Junkie. Or just do decreases but no increases. That's my instinct. But again, try it on.
Yeah, because like everybody likes a different fit.
Yes.
Right? So I've knit a lot of sweaters just as it told me to knit. And I've over time sort of figured out what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah.
And I'm actually doing sweaters based on this sweater.
Yes.
Because I like the fit of this sweater, the way I knit it. So I'm doing other ones kind of based on it.
Yeah.
Tweaking it as I make each one.
Yeah. So Retreat Junkie, I think what you want to do is make sure that whatever you do is gentle. So back to my point about not doing dramatic decreases sort of at a 0 to negative ease to match your body shape, just doing a slight decrease and a slight increase. That will also help prevent like it looking odd or having it hang weirdly or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But try it on. This is your sweater. This is custom to you. I know you struggled with the news that you'd have to put a lifeline all the way in last time.
Yeah.
But you're a pro now. So.
Yeah. They said, the old rescue line trick. Yes. Yeah, and not a bad idea if you are going to tinker with these things. Put a lifeline in before you do any of these short rows and decreases and all this kind of stuff. Because if you're like, this is terrible, I don't know, I don't like this, or I made a mistake, you can just pull right back to that lifeline and you're good. You don't have to fiddle with unraveling.
Exactly. In Retreat Junkie's case, I put one in maybe before you start your decreases, and then put another one in at the waist, so that you can fiddle around easily with what you're going to do between the waist and the hips with minimal risk.
Did you explain the lifeline?
I did.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Same thing as the sleeves. Yeah.
Right, because I wasn't sure if you did the lifeline or you just talked about putting it on to try it on.
Oh.
Was that?
No, I didn't talk about a lifeline.
Okay. Well, no, you kind of did. You kind of did. Yeah, so basically what you do is you get a nice long piece of yarn and you thread a tapestry needle with it. Just like for the sleeves.
Yeah.
But instead of picking up live stitches, well, actually, if
you can do it with live,
So what you will do, since you're going to be setting up a lifeline where you are at that point. You are just going to thread your tapestry needle and your yarn through your needles. Leave the needles in.
Leave the stitches on the needles. Yeah.
Basically, so you're gonna have your needles and a lifeline in the live stitches.
Yeah.
Tie it off and then keep knitting, and that lifeline will stay at that stage.
Yeah.
So you can just pull it back out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if like you get into the mood to do some personal designing and you want to throw some fun textures and stuff,
Yeah.
you're not entirely sure how they're going to turn out, that is a wonderful way to
Yeah.
play around.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to do the fiddly picking up stitches when they're free and on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that question.
Mhm.
And then Julie had a sort of similar
I'm going to scoot back.
specific question.
Okay. Yeah.
She says, could you do those dart style increases in the front but not the back to
Ooh.
accommodate
Yeah.
what she calls a mother's apron, which is just
Oh.
like the kind of
Yes.
that
Yes, you can.
fupa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to call it, well, it's like an instrument for me. I mean, I know it's not I'm not a mom, but I have one, and I like to, it's like a drum. Yes, you absolutely can. Yeah. And then I would just sort of do a little check in terms of, how do I want to say this? Yeah, measuring like half the front. Just be cognizant of taking measurements for the part of the body that you are adjusting for, and not the body as a whole, the torso as a whole.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to
yes, you
do
can.
that.
And Julia, some of the blogs that I'm going to point to in our blog post have discussions with respect to that, and so it's a thing. It's a thing that people do.
Yeah, and like it's kind of also how you want it to hang.
Yes.
Because I like my sweater to kind of hang a certain way. I don't necessarily want to shape around areas like that I might not want to highlight, right? So there's like accommodating them, but then there's also highlighting them too, right? Like I kind of like my sweaters to just kind of be boxy after my bust. I just like a kind of boxy fit, and that's just the most comfortable for me. So you'll really...
You and I are on two different spectrums. I'm like, no, tuck it in.
Yes. So Julie says, am I doing short rows in the front? Because the protrusions are in the front, not the back of the waist.
So the waist shaping won't be short rows.
Right.
The waist shaping is just regular increases and decreases.
Okay.
Akin to almost like when we were doing our yoke, right?
Right.
Except they're not lace.
Right.
The short rows were just for that bust section.
Yeah, so you would do, what would you suggest?
Yeah.
Make one left, right?
So I put markers in my project at the 25 and 75% across the front. And I should say also with respect to what I was talking about last week, when I'm talking about the front and the back, I'm including some of those stitches we cast on under the arm.
Right.
Right? So in my case I had 100 stitches, including those underarms.
Right.
And so I put 50 I had 200 stitches, and I had 100 in the front and 100 in the back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I put a marker in at 25 and a marker in at 75, and then on the back, 25, 75.
Okay.
And so my row was knit to my first marker, make one right, knit one. Sorry, knit to one stitch before my first marker.
Okay.
Make one right, knit one, slip the marker, knit one, make one left.
Okay.
And then repeat. Knit to the next marker, do that.
Okay.
Knit to the next marker, do that. So you've got your 4 increase points.
And make one left and right. They look more like knit stitches than the knit front and back. Knit front and back will kind of look like a little bar, which is fine if you like that.
Yeah.
But the make ones are kind of more.
They're a little bit more invisible, I think.
Yeah.
And then they also slant differently.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing it's like a little fancy thing. Is there a question? How do you do it? Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second.
Katie. Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
I will be right back.
I have I have knitting. My knitting is dark. That's why we can't use my knitting, because it's a very inconveniently dark blue. And then I also have to cast on a sock, which is not particularly helpful for demonstration purposes. So wonderful Caitlin is going to show us how to do a make one. So usually when you see in a pattern just the word or the letter M1 or is make one, they don't specify the direction. You can usually put in whatever you want. But if you are doing mirrored increases, if you mirror a make one right and a make one left, say for the gusset of a thumb, you will have a much more mirrored effect, and they will slant away from each other in a quite visually appealing way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I chose to do that. But if you can't keep them straight in your brain, or you are feeling a little brain dead, fair enough. And you just do 2 make one rights or 2 make one lefts, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, did you want to show or do you want me to show? I can show right away.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Sure. For it.
Right. So let's get in here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to scooch this just a smidge. Yeah. Okay. So
you might want to get a little closer.
Yeah, I do.
It's
I'm just going to stand.
Yeah, that works.
All right. God. I'm just picturing
cue the Benny Hill music.
Yeah. Well, I'm also picturing Cal watching this at some point and dying.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Yes. How many millennials does it take to put a video on YouTube?
Yes.
All right. So here is our fabric here. Mm-hmm. And a make one stitch is essentially grabbing that little loop, that little line of yarn that stretches between the 2 stitches on your needle, grabbing it, twisting it, and making an extra stitch out of it. So to make one right, you're going to take the tip of your left needle, swoop from behind in the back, and pick up that that loop, that little bar, that's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to take the tip of your needle on the right side, and you're going to knit into the front like that. And that's a make one right. Let me knit 1 extra stitch. A make one left is similar, but you come from the front and grab that bar. Mm-hmm. And then you have to knit this one through the back loop. Because if you knit it regularly, let me pick that up again, bar from the front. If you knit it regularly, you're going to end up with a laced hole, basically. Really big hole. This is actually how I invented a yarn over that I forgot during my yoke.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good idea.
So just remember, if you're going to do from the right, it needs to come from the back. And so I tell myself, be right back. Mm-hmm. And then you knit it regularly.
Yeah.
And then if you want to do a left one, comes in from the front. Mm-hmm. And you have to knit through the back loop. And it's always a little fussy. So if you're struggling with it, don't feel bad. It's like super awkward. And that's also how I tell them doing the right one. If it is super easy, you're doing it the wrong way. Yeah. You're knitting in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think you told me that before. Yeah. It makes sense.
Like it's supposed to suck.
It's supposed because basically you're knitting something that you're not supposed to.
Exactly. You're doing a thing that is not comfortable to do.
Yeah.
And that's how you know you're on the right track is it sucks.
Yeah, and there's different ways to kind of remember these things. I have, in my mind, the make one right, the way that the yarn sits on the needle looks like an R. And then I kind of tell myself when it hangs the other way, it looks more like an L. I don't know if it really does, but I've told myself that.
Yes, and that's how you recognize
it. And that's how I remember it. Yeah.
And in my head, I just hear my friend Jess's head going, be right back. Be right back.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Perfect. Cool.
All right.
Do we have any other questions? I kept seeing like little gray boxes pop up.
Yeah. Okay. So Katie wanted to know, how do you do that? Julie says right through the back, left the front door open.
Oh. Yeah. That's clever.
And Katie says, not the camera.
No. Yes. Yes.
We had a near
miss.
Near miss. Okay. So yeah, no more questions for now.
For the waist shaping. We will have that written up. Mm-hmm. I'm quite proud of what we did for the short row shaping. I tried to make it really obvious with the math. Yeah. So I'm going to do the same thing for this section.
Yeah, if you want to go back to that, if you're still at that point from last week, we put it on the blog today. It's been a a long week, so
it's been a very
we just got to it.
Yeah.
We just got to it today.
Yeah.
But you can go back to the blog post on the website, and it's there.
Yeah.
Week 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, week 3. Okay, so the hem. Yes. Oh, Julie says. Julie, is there a dedicated hashtag for our projects? I need the validation.
Oh,
yes.
that's a Caitlin and Katie question.
Is
I'm a dunce when it comes
You know,
to social media.
I mean, Felix KAL. I don't know. I don't know.
Fabrications Felix KAL would be cute.
I don't know what
we'll get back
we
to
did.
you.
I don't know if we did that, but anyway, we will sort that out.
Yeah.
And
We're really good at this.
That's one thing we. That's the one thing we forgot to do, guys.
Yes. While we were too busy watching our bodies fall apart in front of us. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's jump into hem.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little bit about hem. So, what I have found, and I've done a few sweaters this way, and this is sort of my preferred way to do a sweater hem. So what it calls for in the pattern is it a knit one?
It's a 1x1.
1x1 ribs. So knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1.
I do not think the lighting is good enough.
And do you go down
Yes.
go down the needle size?
Yep, I go down the appropriate size. Ribbing has a tendency to expand, and especially the way that I knit. So I always go down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go down to the smaller needle size that's in your pattern that you did your neckline with.
Bingo.
To do your hem.
Yes. So my hem, my neckline, and my sleeve cuff, yeah, that's the word, are all done with the smaller size needle and the 1x1 rib.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what it calls to do in the pattern. And what I have found, because like I was saying, I don't spend the time to do the short row shaping and all that
fine
stuff, which I may do one time.
You don't have to.
I've done it I think I did it for the Ursa.
Yeah, I've done it like twice.
I just followed, it was like to the letter, I just did what I was told. But what I have found was the ranunculus fit me really well.
Yeah.
Just kind of as is. But I do find that ribbing for me kind of squinches in.
Yeah.
And because I have a large bust and like it just, I find a sweater like that, like a sweatshirt, sometimes when you get a sweatshirt and the bottom hem is really tight.
Yes.
It just shimmies up my body. And then I feel like a mushroom.
Okay, yes.
You know, because everything is just kind of up at the top.
Yeah.
So I've done that on a couple sweaters and I did not like it. So what I do for all my sweaters now is instead of a regular rib stitch, I do what's called a broken rib stitch. So basically it's a rib for one row and then a knit for the next row. So it's even less work because you're not.
I love a broken rib. Love it.
For one row, you're just knitting. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like.
It's beautiful.
It's really pretty, and I'm going to try it maybe with I do a knit 2, purl 2, broken rib, but I'm going to try it knit 1, purl 1, just to see how that looks. So it's definitely a little more textured, but it's got that rib look to it. And what I find it does is it hangs straighter. And I don't go down needle size.
Okay.
I just keep it the same. And then I get a nice kind of boxy fit. So.
Yes. And that makes sense that
just kind of.
It doesn't pull in as much because you're breaking up that natural ribbing pulling in.
Yeah, exactly.
With a plain knit row every time.
Because that's what a rib does. It's a tighter fit. Yeah. So is broken rib as stretchy as 1x1, or does it hold its shape better? So it's not as stretchy.
No,
right?
But 2x2 will be stretchier, I think, than 1x1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do I answer this? It's not as stretchy in the sense that it doesn't stretch back in.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it just hangs, which is nice. It almost hangs the same width as the knit.
Yeah. So it's not as stretchy, but it doesn't need to be.
Exactly, because it's just more open, I guess is what I mean.
Because I think the idea behind rib is often that like you will stretch something by wearing it or by like pushing a sleeve up your arm or something like that. And if you do a rib, when you pull the sleeve, say, back down to wrist length, it will kind of accommodate back in, it will suck kind of inwards again. But you don't need that for this hem because you are not looking for that.
Exactly. I just want it to hang flat.
Yeah, it does not need to grip.
Right. And so Julie says, do you do the same broken rib on the cuff? And the answer is no. Because I don't like my sleeves to hang loose. I like my sleeves to be nice and nice and tight because I do a lot of this.
Yes.
And I don't like it when they fall back down.
Literally what we were just talking about.
It's like the opposite.
Yes.
So I know we're going to be talking about sleeves later, but I'll just show you kind of the difference. So this is a 1x1 rib on the sleeve. And I decided for a couple of sweaters that I didn't want to do any decreases on the sleeves because I wanted to have this kind of blousy kind of look. So I didn't do any decreases to accommodate the taper. I just did my sleeves straight. Yeah. Also less thinking. Yeah. So I did them straight. And then I did a bunch of decreases right before I started the ribbing with the smaller needle. And that gives me kind of this
cute little tuck.
Slightly blousy looking sleeve, which I really like.
Whereas mine, you can see, hold on, let me put it not in front of my gray sweater. There we go. You can see that there is some tapering in my sleeve because I followed the instructions.
Yeah. And that'll be a more fitted.
Yes, it is definitely a more fitted experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The provisional cast on was really pretty on the neckline. How should I bind off, or am I getting ahead?
Oh yeah. If you did the tubular cast on at the front, you can do a tubular bind off at the bottom.
Yeah, if you want to.
And that will mimic the same idea. So tubular bind off will make it look like the infinity pool of bind offs. I have done that at Grand Home once. I think I don't regret it. However, I had to watch that video like 5 times until I stopped thinking like, these are words. I should understand these words. It's kind of, you do it with a darning needle and it's almost like a Kitchener stitch but with nothing on the other side.
Right, okay.
So you're like going in and out of the stitches. And the one thing that I found really frustrating for a tubular bind off was that you have to have your full end of yarn. Which if you're knitting a 30 inch, and sorry, so it's like 3 times the diameter of your sweater. So if you're knitting a 60 inch sweater, or the circumference, if you're knitting a 60 inch sweater, you've got to pull 180 inches of yarn through every stitch multiple times. So that was why I'm never doing that one again, but that is how you would do that. I'm actually pretty sure I use multiple ends. I just like rejoined and stuff.
Yeah, and I just bind off in pattern. So I do like, knit 2, purl 2 in my bind off.
And I usually bind off tightly, so I usually go back up to the body size needle. Yeah. And bind off.
Okay, so retreat junkie. I love how committed you are to this. Okay, so retreat junkie, how did you decide how fast to decrease at the end of the sleeve? How did you decide number of rows to use to decrease? So I've done this for a couple sweaters. So what I've done is, let's say on my sleeve I've got 55 stitches.
Use a round number, 100 stitches. That's the same as the front of my sweater, but maybe it's a big sleeve.
Okay, let's do 50. Okay, let's say I have 50 stitches around where I pick up from my armpit and do my whole sleeve, and I just do that straight. Then let's say in the pattern, it has you decreasing. Let's say it wants you to be at 40.
Yes.
Let's say. at this point before you start your cuff. Then I just knit it straight, 50 stitches the whole way, and then when I get here, I decrease to 40.
Yeah. So basically you decrease to whatever the pattern says you need to have by the time you start your
exactly, if that makes sense.
And you did it evenly around the evenly?
Yeah.
Like
I did it just right before I started the cuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I like a nice long cuff.
Yeah, that's another one. So luckily you don't need to put a lifeline on when you realistically, for the most part, once you get to about like elbow, you hopefully will have to put on a lifeline to try anything on.
Oh yeah, you just put it on.
And then, especially when you get to your cuff, just pop your sweater on with the needle still in, so you can measure how long a cuff you want.
Yeah. So they say decrease every row or every second row. So
You just did one row, right?
Yeah, I knit 50 stitches every row until I got to the wrist, and then I did one decrease row. Yeah. Where I decreased 10 stitches, for example. I don't remember exactly how many it was, and I've done this pretty much for a lot of sweaters. Yeah. I did it for the Felix that is on display at the store, although I think it's not on the mannequin right now. It does use more yarn though.
Ah, yes.
So if you're like, playing yarn chicken, make sure you maybe do your decreases for your sleeve. But we'll talk more about sleeves next week, because I feel like we're kind of cutting it close to like an hour or so.
Yes, and also we need to demonstrate how to pick up stitches under the arm, so I think we're going to have to leave it to next week.
Yeah, we'll do that next week. Yeah. So, just keep knitting your body. Figure out what kind of modifications you want to do to it. Or
if any. Yeah.
If you want to just knit it as is, if it's your first sweater and you just want to kind of...
And even if it's not your first sweater, Caitlin's knit a bajillion sweaters. Yeah. And she doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
Yep. Yeah. You'll really figure out what you like and what you don't like. Yes. And certain designers will kind of have... Like I know Katie always says, I think it was Deer and Doe. She says Deer and Doe patterns just always fit her out of the package. She never has to do any grading or anything like that. So you may find there's the designer who makes sweaters that always fit you. Yep. All
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Last burning questions, anybody, before we log off for the evening?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Maybe we'll give people a second.
So we'll come back again for one last week.
Yeah.
Talk about sleeves, picking up
for the sleeves, decreasing. I think we were going to kind of touch on blocking.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about blocking next week.
But we also have a video.
Yes.
On blocking. That is on our YouTube. Yes, it's on our YouTube.
Oh yeah, I wore that shawl tonight. That was the best. I was like, I don't have room to block this. I'll block it at the store.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to kind of jump ahead or you're curious, we've got that video up where we talk about blocking different kinds of things. I do really super basic blocking for sweaters, but
same.
I mean,
I watch it and I lay it flat, and then I cross my fingers that it will dry, and that's better.
Yeah. There's definitely fancy ways, especially if you have lace in the pattern. It's a really good idea to kind of do some real blocking. Julie says, is the sleeve length, maybe she means if the sleeve length of 15 inch before the cuff, where would that land on my arm? Is the sleeve length of 15 before the cuff?
Oh, it says, so she gives a very general measurement, but she essentially says or as far as you want to go before your cuff. Right. So if you wrap up all the decreases that she mentions in the pattern and you're like, well, that's not long enough, there's no way. Just keep knitting unless there's still dramatic decreases to go. Just knit plain until you hit your cuff. Sometimes it's like an inch and a half. If it's significantly more and there is a lot more shaping towards your wrist, then you might throw in another couple decreases or so. But yeah, this is quite literally the easiest part of the sweater to adjust the length of the arm.
Yeah, and it's so easy to try on at this point.
Yes.
You don't have to do any lifelines,
Oh,
probably.
it's glorious, yeah.
And is the cuff intended to be folded over? That's, again, like, this
Personal
is
choice.
such a personal choice. Like, I like mine a little long so that if I want to do that, I can.
Oh, that's cute.
It's really cute.
Get distracted.
So again, like there's so many modifications you can do, and
I've modified a sweater and did no rib, and just sort of ended it, and that was more of like a 3/4 length. And so if you just have stockinette with nothing else on the other side, it tends to curl. So it kind of gave me like a little vintagey rolled cuff, 3/4
really
mid look. It was super cute.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can do it. And I have, I don't have it handy, but I have a sweater that's garter hem, and that looks really nice too. You could for sure, you know, if you wanted to make a sweater but do it with garter,
or
hem and cuff and all that,
totally.
you can do that.
Or
it just won't
suck in.
it won't suck in as much. It kind of will just kind of like sit flat.
I was actually thinking about that when I forget who, someone asked about using that broken rib on the cuff. So it won't suck in at all if you use it up here, but maybe if you put your cuff, if you do a half or a 3/4 length sleeve, that could look quite pretty as a cuff.
I actually I have a love note actually that I did a short sleeve.
Okay.
And I knit it to about here because I wanted it kind of like not too short. And I did a broken rib on the sleeve there. And that's nice. It doesn't, it kind of just sits. Like I did enough decreases that it just kind of sits nicely. Yeah. And it's really cute.
And I guess I have one more question or comment.
Julie's awesome. She's participating.
I know.
Great.
So it's not like we see her in person.
She says, am I being too particular?
No, that's the whole point of this.
Yeah, you can make it exactly what you want, and you can customize it. This is a really great sweater for customizing. And she says thank you.
Anytime.
I think that's probably it then. If nobody has any more questions.
I think maybe want to drop a hint that we are talking at the shop about the possibility of moving knitting circles into evenings. We're doing an evening knitting event in person at the shop, hopefully next month. So keep your ear to the ground, because if you are local, we would love to see you come out. Bring your Felix, whether it's in progress, or wear it.
It's like the Rhinebeck sweater, where it's like not totally finished. You still wear it to Rhinebeck?
No, totally. My ends were not woven in.
We're working on something for you knitters for October, for Socktober. So hopefully
stay glued to the newsletter and to our social media. Should be fun.
Awesome.
All right. If that's it, then thank you, everybody.
I think that's it.
We'll see you next week. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're here. All we think about is knitting. So
that's very true.
Right.
Sad but true.
So sad. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Happy knitting. We'll see you soon.
Bye.